Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm just going to give about one more minute for people to join in, and then we'll kick things off. Just a quick note that everyone has been muted and your cameras have been turned off. So if you do have any questions or need anything, feel free to go ahead and use that chat. See, we've got about 40 people or so, over 40 people in. That's great. Okay. Some people are still joining, but I'm going to go ahead and kick things off. Again, good morning, everybody, and welcome. This is DP Solutions webinar, Introducing Security Plus, a live online session to strengthen your cybersecurity. My name's Jill Rose. I'll be the moderator and organizer for today's session. Before we dive in, I just have a few quick housekeeping notes to go over just to make sure everything runs smoothly today. As I noted earlier, everyone is muted and all the cameras are turned off just to minimize any background noise and distractions. So if you do have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to type them in the chat. We'll either address them during the session or hold them off for the dedicated Q&A at the end. During the open Q&A, you're welcome to either continue typing your questions or you can raise your hand if you'd like to come off mute and ask your question live. Finally, today's session is being recorded and a link to the recording will be available on our website by tomorrow, and I'll also be sending it out directly to your inbox later today. We're excited to share this information with you guys and hope you have a good session. And with that, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Ken Goldstein, DP Solutions Vice President of Client Strategy. Ken, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Jill. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Security Plus kickoff call, essentially. We're very excited to have this conversation today. Security Plus is raising the bar for all of our clients and any new clients that are here. And this is really a conversation with our client base, kind of introducing you to the concepts of Security Plus. We're looking forward to educating you today and explaining why it's important that we move in this direction. So from an agenda standpoint, I'm going to talk briefly about the overview of Security Plus for your business. Then I'm going to hand it off to Ron Connolly, he's going to cover really the what's included. He'll have some impact in terms of some of the tools that we use. It's important to note that there's a discipline to this as well. He'll go over the elements to help you understand what's kind of on the back end. And then we'll hand it off to our Blackpoint. Blackpoint is kind of the cornerstone of our Security Plus offering. They'll get into the weeds a little bit, but they'll keep it high level for sure. We have Adam Crump and Tanner Payne to kind of work through that. And then we'll go into our Q&A. This will be an opportunity for all of you to ask questions and understand. And please note, we do have client strategy advisors on the call as well. They're the ones who are going to be following up with all of you to be able to answer questions, help you move forward, and then we'll talk about the best way to get it deployed for you all. So moving forward, kind of the high level of Security Plus. Okay, so the first question is, why Security Plus? Well, we've made a concerted effort because we have to. It's essential. The threats are worse than they've ever been before. There's requirements and prerequisites even coming from insurance companies. Back in the day, you'd get one page when you're filling out forms to get new cyber liability insurance. Now it's 20 pages. They are potential loopholes. But ultimately, it points to the fact that security is so tenuous at this point. They're not just going over the big enterprise companies. They're actually going after the smaller companies as well. Actually, the thought is that smaller companies aren't as well protected. So we made the concerted effort at DP Solutions to raise that bar. And I'm sure we'll get questions around, well, weren't you doing this before? Of course, we were doing at best practices. But Security Plus is actually an expanded version of security, right? Security is not only is it a discipline, it's a layered approach. So the more visibility that we have to your system, the better we can support you, the better that we can approach your business objectives. But really, that's what it's about for us, right? Understanding your business, being able to provide insight as to what's going on with your technology and be able to bring data so you can make business decisions, so you can achieve what you're trying to achieve. So ultimately, the value that we feel that we bring is understanding what you're trying to achieve, whether it's through productivity and user experience. Obviously, productivity and a good user experience is going to affect your revenue for sure, because the more that you can do. But on the other side of it, security, stability, and it is extremely important as well for you all, because if you're not safe and you're not productive, it impacts not only the bottom line, it impacts your users as well. So we want to take the time to go through as best as possible, explain to you the tools that are involved one by one, but also keep in mind that security is a discipline. It's not only the tools that you use, it's actually the way that they're used. So you'll see as Ron walks through the 7 components that there is an element of human interaction, right? So we're going to put some tools in place. We're going to have more visibility, but ultimately there's going to be interaction between the security team who are analyzing and responding, and conversation with your client strategies advisors so they can align your business goals and help you to achieve them. So this is very super important on our end, and we're very excited to bring it to you. So I'll turn it over to Ron now. I'll stop sharing. So Ron, you can start going through the elements and components.
Muted. There we go. Sorry about that. You should see my screen. So I am Ron Conley. I'm the VP of Technical Operations here at DP Solutions. And as Ken said, we've been working on this initiative for quite a while. And the main reason behind it is we wanted to get a baseline for all of our clients. So everybody's meeting a basic level of security. The platform that we chose is the NIST format. So we followed NIST 800, 171, and 53, and a few others as our baseline. As we ourselves are going through our CMMC compliance requirement for level 2, we wanted to kind of pass those on to as many of our clients as possible without going to full compliance level. So what I'm going to go over is the 7 components. And many of you may already have seen these through some of our other marketings that we've done or through your CSAs. But the first one that we have is for advanced infrastructure hardening. This is primarily around your firewall. If you have a firewall or multiple firewalls, we're going to go into your firewall and we're going to ensure geofiltering by IP address is enabled, and we're blocking the bad guys from the good guys, things like that. And a lot of this may go over some folks' heads. That's fine. That's where our CSAs will come in. They can explain in more detail. We also have a one-pager we're going to be providing that has a little bit more detail about these as well. And what's on the screen is only a sample of what we're providing. There's plenty more that we're doing, but some of the big ones in this case, like geofiltering, access controls through MAC filtering. So we allow specific devices, company-owned devices on your network, and we don't allow the personal or BYOD's devices on your personal or on your company network. What that'll do is it keeps out anything that's not managed and monitored. It might not have any virus, it might have whatever on it. We keep that off your network at the firewall level. We also ensure that any logging, any redundancy as far as like failover from firewall to firewall, if you have multiple ISPs, if your Comcast goes down, we have Verizon kick in, things like that. We make sure all of those are working in a very working form or proficient format. We make sure that if something were to happen, then we have all the tools in place, such as logging, monitoring, and everything, and the access to our portals, to our vendors, everything that's in place as possible to where we can remediate an issue sooner rather than later. Now, some of these, like it says on the bottom, there may be some firewall license changes. That'll be worked out through your CSAs. Today, we've only seen minor changes on firewalls, so don't let that alarm anybody where additional licenses, I have to pay more or anything like that. It's not always the case, and often out with the firewalls, it's not even the case. We just throw that there because there may be a requirement for some licensing changes. Second bucket, if you will, is the Office Microsoft 365 tenant hardening. Now, it does apply to Azure as well. We will tighten some things in here, but primarily we're focusing on the Office tenants. We're going to go in there. We're going to make sure you have policies enabled, not documented policies, but actual password policies that are enabled. So if you have a requirement to have 12 characters, uppercase, lowercase numbers, whatever, we're going to make sure those are in place for all users. MFA, multi-factor authentication is absolutely mandatory for all admin users, all the way down to non-admin users, shared accounts, everything. They are absolutely mandatory, and they're even more required nowadays for security compliance, or I'm sorry, insurance compliance. So MFA is a big one. Idle session timeouts, external email tagging, and also geofiltering, and conditional access policies. All of these come into play where we see these issues on a day-to-day basis, where I log in here in Maryland, and then 10 minutes later, I logged in from California. We will have policies in place to prevent that, and it automatically triggers that didn't happen. That can't happen. It's impossible travel. Or I logged in 2 times within a span of 3 minutes on 2 different devices with 2 different public IPs. The system, along with Blackpoint, we will find that as an issue and we can address it faster. And there's automation built into it as well. Like the tenant hardening, I'm sorry, like the network hardening, this may require additional 365 licensing, which the CSAs can talk over that with you. The next area is our MDR. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one because that's why Blackpoint is here. They will go into more detail, but primarily it's a 24/7 SOC with MDR solution that's installed on devices, and it protects your device whether you're in the office behind a firewall or if you're at home in a hotel, driving down the road, well, not on your laptop, anything like that, it'll protect your device. It does protect against your Microsoft tenant as well, like I just mentioned. It also does vulnerability monitoring, dark web scanning, in response to any malicious attacks. So again, I'll let Adam and Tanner talk more about that. We have phishing and testing and then user security training. If you are familiar with the KnowBe4 product or you already use KnowBe4, it is KnowBe4. That's what we use. If you sign up for the Security Plus offerings and everything, you will get KnowBe4 phishing included in that, and security awareness training. If you are a compliance such as CMMC or ISO, having security awareness training is required. It's one of the requirements. So we're taking that out of the do I get it, do I don't get it hands. We're giving it to you as part of the package because we know you're going to need it. Next is the vulnerability testing and reporting. We do this with our security team on an annual basis. What we do is we will run all the scans and everything on your Microsoft tenant or any tenant, Google Workspace as well. We also run it on your live environment, your network, all your workstations, your infrastructure, everything, even copiers and printers. And we will look for vulnerabilities and any gaps in the security. And once a year, we actually have a security engineer will deep dive into those reports and come up with any recommendations. On a quarterly basis, we're going to do automated runs. And if there's any automated alerts that pop up, we are going to check into those, and we will work with you on closing the loops. This is not the same as like a MITRE ATT&CK CVE vulnerability. Those are separate. We handle those separately. These are ones where we actually just run a report manually or automated, and it's a kind of a quasi internal penetration testing. We're poking holes, and we want to find anything that the other automated tools are not finding right away. Next is cybersecurity's form assistance. We get a lot of these, and if you're, especially in Maryland, we have a lot of cyber forms that we have to do for cyber insurance, cyber compliance, any of that stuff. But what these are for is that those forms turned in went from a 1-pager that took 5 minutes to a 20-pager that took hours to do. There was a lot of times where are these included? Do we bill extra for these? And it got to be so cumbersome that let's just include it. It makes it easier for us. We can also find stuff if, for example, one of them is always MFA. Do you have MFA enabled? No. We will work with you to get MFA enabled so you can say yes, so you can get better insurance premiums and keep your rates and everything down. What is not included in this is any compliance. And by compliance, I mean ISO auditing, CMMC level 1 or level 2. Any of those type of auditing or gap analysis or even GDPR, HIPAA, any of that, that is not what's included here. We will assist, and we have an outside engagement on that, but that is not what this is intended for. It's really just those day-to-day insurance forms, answer vendor questionnaires, things like that. And finally, on one of the quarters of one of your QBRs, we will have you'll sit with your QBRs with your CSAs. We will have one of the security engineers will sit with you and your CSA, and we will do the road mapping little bit more in depth than a standard QBR. So normal QBR, CSA is going to get in there, talk security, and then road mapping. When we get in there, we're going to talk security and road mapping, but we're going to talk a little bit more in depth, answer any more questions, more long term, where the future is going, what are we seeing? The QBR is the quarterly business review. Sorry, it's a quarterly review that we have with our CSA. We'll meet with each of your clients and everything to talk about how things have been, how things are going, what can we do better, things like that. And so that's what the annual VCSO is, and it's there really just to help guide you with questions. If you have questions down the road, you just need to answer. You just need, hey, I got a question. Here's my plan. What do you think? The CSA, along with the VCSO, we'll be able to help answer those questions. And the final thing I have is all of this stuff, again, don't have to worry about it, is Jill is going to be putting this form into our chat. It includes all the tools and everything I just talked about along the right side, all of our primary partners here on the left side, including Blackpoint right there in the middle. And on page 2 of this, it's pretty much everything that I just talked about is a little bit more detailed. Again, this is not everything that's included. There will be some things that we just didn't have room to put on here. This is the bulk of the stuff that we're going to be doing as part of our implementation of Security Plus. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I'm sorry, there's our partners again. And I'm going to turn it over to Adam and Tanner.
Excellent. Thank you, Ron. Welcome, everyone. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to hop on and connect with us. Let me get my screen shared here. And there we go. Hopefully everyone can see my screen okay. So first and foremost, I'm just going to wrap us up into a nutshell, a little synopsis of whom Blackpoint Cyber is. So we are a technology-focused cybersecurity company. And at the end of the day, we're headlined by our proprietary 24/7 managed detection and response. So when you unpack us, we're a full security ecosystem play, and we're combining your network visualization, your insider threat monitoring, your anti-malware, your traffic analysis, your cloud security, network level security, and of course, endpoint security, all in a single unified service. So with that being said, as gentleman referenced earlier, whether you're at home working remotely, you're on the road, you're on prem in the office, you name it, we're on watch and we've got you protected. So we're also rightfully deemed a SOC as a service. So with that being said, we do indeed provide an in-house security operations center team. They assume all the heavy lifting from the security end, if you will. So they're in place with full 24/7 detection and remediation capabilities. So nothing goes undetected on their watch, in other words. So where do we fit into the market space, with leading differentiators? Well, first and foremost, we are notorious and specialize in combating the advanced tradecraft and the live off the land tactics that are being leveraged day in and day out in this modern threat landscape by the bad actors, as we like to call them. And thankfully, we're also notorious for neutralizing these attacks in their absolute earliest stages. So naturally, one would inquire as to, well, how do you achieve that? And what separates you apart from the rest of the competition? Well, contrary to, I'd say, about 90% of the other rest of the security market, who still to this day, which is riddling, they're still reactive based. So they're defensive in nature and purely reactive. SIEM vendors, they rely on SIEM ingested logs. They have to analyze those logs, wait for the parsing, correlate the data, along the likes of Arctic Wolf and whatnot. So we couldn't be more contrary. We're offensive and proactive in nature through and through, right? So another noteworthy item is we always lead with an assume breach mentality. So in other words, think shoot first, ask questions later, because there's absolutely zero room for error in that dynamic, right? So behind the scenes, we do deploy an agent-based solution, very lightweight, which is really surprising given the superior intellectual state of our agent. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, our mission is just closing that notorious gap between event identification and your response times. So next, I'm going to share a little foundational and historical intel about Blackpoint, where we came from. So we're actually founded and led by former NSA computer network operation experts. And a lot of our security operations center team actually were heavily recruited out of the NSA as well. So the big guru behind the scenes is Mr. John Murchison. So John is our CEO and founder, and John spent well over a decade with the NSA. Interestingly enough, the NSA, 98% of the NSA is actually dedicated to the defensive side of the house. Whereas John, very high up in ranking as a senior watch officer and project lead executive for that unique 2% side of the house on the offensive end. So, I mean, it's safe to say that John was a professional bad guy. He's just playing for the good guys. And we're all very fortunate that John chose the honorable route, or else we'd all be in trouble. So needless to say, when John really just had an epiphany, when he entertained parting ways with the NSA, he thought to himself, I've spent an entire career circumventing multiple state-of-the-art cybersecurity solutions, and I've successfully gotten through every single one of them over this past, 12 to 15 years. True story, by the way. So he thinks to himself, why not just build a product and solution to stop the likes of me? Well, he did just that. The rest is history. Blackpoint Cyber was born. That was about 14 years ago, and just so happened to start the pioneering of our product and technology right there in your area in Ellicott City, Maryland, where we still have a presence for our R&D center. So outside of that, we are the only world-class nation-state grade cybersecurity ecosystem. We have U.S. Department of Defense, Microsoft, and Cisco lineage within our executive leadership team as well. And about a year and a half ago, we were thankful enough to hit a huge milestone. We received a very large round of $190 million from the top 2-tier venture capitalists in the entire game, thanks to Bain Capital and Excel. So Bain, arguably the largest investor in the cybersecurity space. And then, of course, you have Excel, who's the primary funding behind the likes of CrowdStrike and Tenable. So long story short, they sat at the table with us and they were absolutely just amazed with our proprietary solution offering, and more importantly, the underlying unparalleled efficacy of our technology and detection capabilities. Not just that, they truly acknowledge the absolute necessity for MDR and SOC as a service. We can bucket this and compile it into advanced security relative to the legacy models in this day and age. And they know that this is going to be a necessity for the foreseeable future, and they wanted to be a part of that story. So obviously they decided on a joint venture, which is amazing, frankly unheard of, but I think it's safe to say that Blackpoint's doing something right to warrant that. And next, I'd like to share with you a few interesting stats from our in-house security operations center team. So as you all can see, we're averaging over 120 responses per week. So you can quantify this as over 120 legitimate saves, neutralizing threat attacks on a weekly basis. And of course, 90% of these attacks are occurring while you and I are sleeping for obvious reasons. And notably, 85% of these attacks were actually cloud identity related. So that still remains and bodes true. But above all these stats, I'd say that this one on the right is definitely alarming and eye-opening. And to provide some baseline metrics here in context, so these stats were compiled from over 100,000 incident responses to attacks last year alone from our SOC. So out of those 100,000 plus events, when our SOC needed to stop an attack, only 14% of the time did we receive a single alert from your EDR or your next-gen AV solutions. So that's the big eye-opener there. And if we're being honest with ourselves, I mean, it was only a matter of time before this threat landscape hit the evolution track in hypergrowth mode. And unfortunately, it has. So this just really signifies and illustrates where the puck has moved to from a threat landscape, tactic, and strategy perspective, which also emboldens and highlights the absolute necessity for true managed detection and response versus being reliant on EDR and AV. Those days are unfortunately long behind. So next, I'd like to share with you all briefly the security stack. That is our holy grail. It's implemented for many of you. And for those that are new to it, I'll briefly unpack each of the tools here for you. So this is our modern streamlined cyber stack, also known as the Blackpoint Response Bundled Suite. And this is indeed offered as a single SKU. It's a one-size-fits-all comprehensive cyber stack that provides all of the components that are actually needed to properly secure your environments without your overlap or your unnecessary tooling, of course. So we actually formulated this stack by our comprehensive research of the most utilized security frameworks, predominantly NIST, CMMC, CIS, of course, but we also model our offering by using the notorious defense in depth framework and strategy. So that framework and strategy is in place so that we remain one step ahead of this constantly evolving threat landscape. So interestingly enough, this stack in itself has grown over the past decade plus, since our existence. It started with 2 tools. Now you can see we've quadrupled that product offering within. The why? Well, the threat landscape inevitably evolves over time. Well, our prerogative is remaining one step ahead of it and extending that in advance to our partners and their respective end clients. So what I'll do is I'll just unpack these briefly for us. So first and foremost, you have our headlining component, our patented MDR active response and MDR endpoint tradecraft protection. So this is Windows and Mac OS agents for all servers, workstations, laptops, desktops, but physical and virtual. And we also have Linux agent on the roadmap, which will materialize this year. And next, you've got your cloud response MDR, highly critical component here. We can reflect back to the SOC statistics slide that indicated a greater dominance, of the attacks that we're remediating in this day and age. They originate with a cloud identity. So think of this as, where we're extending our proprietary nation state grade MDR to your hybrid and your cloud environments to minimize your overall attack surface. And not to be taken with a grain of salt, but we are the absolute best in the world at protecting cloud identities. In fact, we were the first security vendor in the entire world to take MDR to the cloud for Microsoft 365, Azure AD, Exchange, SharePoint, Google Workspace, and Cisco Duo. Next, you've got your ransomware response. So some fun buzzwords in here. So think of this as just very highly effective automated ransomware prevention, because that's precisely what it is. And then next, you see our managed EDR component. So, many outfits, especially in this day and age, have already adopted, a next-gen AV and or EDR solution, and we're aware of that. So this is where we're providing a seamless integration to take total cost of ownership of that AV or EDR. So our SOC will have full visibility into the telemetry, metadata. We'll be monitoring, managing, and responding to all alerts and all activity that may be suspicious and or malicious, obviously. This is also accompanied by our native built-in next-gen EDR as well. Next in line, you've got your managed application control. Okay, so this is a very critical component in this day and age. The puck is moved, so have the tactics by the bad actors. So I'm sure you all have heard me reference live off the land, right? This is the safeguarding mechanism against that. Very, very effective and necessary in this day and age. So this managed application control is where we're covering your extended application perimeters and your remote support IT tools. So think zero trust, okay, with a modern approach, really. So we provide a prepackaged list of policies that are designed to block known bad applications, remote support IT tools that have been observed by our security operations center team and our threat intelligence team in real life everyday cyber attacks. And next, you've got your vulnerability management. So relatively self-explanatory. but just providing that absolute must of visibility into exposures across your entire attack surface. So this will include internal, cloud, and external infrastructure, vulnerability management, reporting, and scanning. Okay. So again, just providing that necessary increased visibility into potential threats across your endpoints, your servers, your internet exposed services, and of course, your cloud services. And lastly, you've got your continuous dark web monitoring. So this is the newer tool that we recently added to our stack for our partners about 5 months ago. We just felt the need to provide an additional tool that allows our partners to be proactive in identifying, the potential leak of sensitive information and assets for their respective end clients. So the scans will show exposed email addresses, usernames, passwords, impacted domains, breach names, etc. And then, of course, you have our in-house dedicated team of experts working behind the scenes, eyes in the sky, boots on the ground, 24/7, 365, nights, holidays, weekends, Christmas morning, you name it. So, of course, that consists of our 24/7 SOC, our proactive threat hunting team, and our APG team. So APG stands for Adversary Pursuit Group. And these guys are in a class of their own. They're truly remarkable in their trade. Some of the absolute best reverse engineers in the entire world. And they better be that great, right? Because they're a bunch of former NSA, counterintelligence, Department of Defense studs, right? But such an integral part of our team behind the scenes. Lastly, I'll finish my portion here with a fun fact. So we are notorious for having the fastest response times in the world. So we can tie that back to, relatively to what I referenced our mission as is closing that gap between event identification and response times. So that being said, our fastest response times in the world entail we have a 15-minute service level objective. So that's our SLO. Now, that sounds great and all, but it really doesn't hold, an abundance of water unless we have, a viable comparison in the space. So we could compare to a big name, along the likes of CrowdStrike, enterprise level, over $1 billion market cap organization, been around for a long time. Their SLO, 60 minutes, a full hour in comparison to our 15. However, our SOC, that 15-minute SLO just doesn't bode well with them apparently, because they're actually averaging in between 5 and 11 minutes at the most, which is absolutely remarkable. And continued efforts around ongoing progression and minimizing that SLO time by even more. And that will be a constant endeavor of ours. So that's it for our stack. And I'm going to go on ahead and hand the ball over to my colleague and senior engineer, Tanner Payne, to give us some insight into the threat assessment summary. Just think, exposure prioritization, and then cover some elements within the monthly comprehensive MDR report.
All right. I think I'm sharing the right window. All right. We're looking good. Okay, so I just wanted to go over a couple of quickly 2 reports that we have within the Blackpoint MDR service. So the first one that we're looking at here is what we call our threat assessment summary. So this is a rolling 30-day report that covers essentially the stack of modules that you saw in one of Adam's slide in a summarized portion. So you could go into either one of those in more detail here, but this report really just gives you a point in time, so you don't have to wait for a report at the end of the month. You can jump into it at any time and get a high-level assessment of your current risk profile. So just starting at the top, we've got the vulnerability perspective. So this is from our external vulnerability plugin. So this shows you, okay, these are your the current IP addresses that are exposed to the internet, so your public-facing IP addresses. Then from there, what ports do they have open? What services are they running? And then any vulnerabilities associated with those services or known exploits. So this will crank out a a pretty in-depth report on any of the the high CVEs, high, medium, low, as well as when you get into the report, it'll show you, okay, here's here's the severity of it, here's the CVE if it's related to one, and then here are some ways that you can make changes and lock this down and reduce your threat exposure from the external perspective. Then we also we get down into the environment. So this is covers some preventative mechanisms. So things like BitLocker protection. So just quantifying, making sure that if you are using something like BitLocker, that they're all enabled and you're not missing anything. The same if you're using Windows auto updates. So making sure that Windows is continuously automatically updating each Windows endpoint. And then also your operating system. So the breakdown of your different OSs. And then from those, if you have any that are end of life or critically vulnerable, they'll be highlighted here. So you can take action and remediate or upgrade those as needed. Then we move down into the dark web, which Adam mentioned. So this is really pushing about as far left on the attack lifecycle as you go, prior to initial compromise or initial access, where we're identifying their credentials and passwords related to your organization that are currently exposed and could be used in a future attack. Then we go down to manage application control. So this is our method of preventing the execution or installation of not necessarily malware, but apps that our SOC, who monitors over 13,000 end customers, the most likely or the most common dual-use tools that that the SOC sees being abused by attackers to get a particular job done. Then we move into the cloud. So this gives you a nice kind of a geo-visual representation of overall user activity, and especially that's been deemed to be anomalous, as well as where it's coming from. So we can see that we're looking at login from an unapproved country for this entity, as well as any new device and IP combinations as the source of an authentication for an account, or multiple user lockouts. So you could just drill into any of these, which I may have added a filter, but live demo fail here. Let's see if we can go straight into one. So we see one in Japan. Then we can see, okay, 2 unapproved country logins from Japan. And well, anyway, there was data there about 5 minutes ago. Then also, besides that graphic representation, just highlighting the top failed login. So any user accounts that stand out as, oh, they have an excessive amount of failures. This could indicate that they're actively under attack and somebody is trying to brute force this particular account. Then finally, we have the CIS details. So this is something that through our connection to Microsoft 365, we pull the 365 and Azure configuration parameters as well, and run those through the CIS security benchmark best practices, and pump out a list of things that, like, for example, CIS section 1.1.1 says ensure MFA is enabled for all user accounts in administrative roles. And so if this is not 100%, then it'll be marked as disabled or not not completed. And you can go into more detail up in our vulnerability management, but it just kind of highlights areas or configuration changes that you can make within your Azure tenant to harden the attack surface or minimize that risk profile from the cloud perspective. Okay, and then the other report that I wanted to highlight quickly is what we call our monthly MDR report. So this one, I already have one up here that this one will automatically run at the first of each month. And I really just I won't get into the nitty gritty of all the different sections, but really just wanted to highlight that this one is it does a good job to quantify the depth and the breadth of the monitoring that's taken place by our MDR service, and it really shows the volume of telemetry that we're analyzing over the given period. So and we're kind of offloading from you guys. So starting at the top of the funnel over the reporting period, so we had 279,000 telemetry events that were ingested and analyzed by the SOC. So from those 279,000, there were 4,100 that met the scoring threshold to trigger an actual event. So these kind of build on each other. Then from those events, we had 992 that the risk threshold of that event or a correlation of several events rose to the point where it alerted our SOC to trigger an investigation by one of our SOC analysts. And then finally, of those 992, then we'll highlight any that resulted in an active response from our SOC. So we analyzed, we saw something that was deemed malicious, and we isolated an endpoint, suspended a process, disabled a user account, kicked out an MFA token. So whatever any response we take, then those will be highlighted. So ultimately, this report does a good job of quantifying the work that that we as a group are offloading from you guys. So you can concentrate on what you want to do, which is running your business. And I'll turn it back over for questions.
For me. Yes.
Yep, Ken.
Yeah. Thank you, Tanner. Really appreciate that. Let's see if I can get to my slide. Pick it up seamlessly. Hey, let's start over. Okay, really. So I assume everyone can see my screen. So what's next? For us, obviously, there's a lot of technical aspects that go on behind the scenes. We wanted to demonstrate that today. Really appreciate Adam and Tanner and Ron kind of going through those components. But I think it's important to emphasize that it is a discipline. And I think part of the value with us partnering with Blackpoint, as well as having our team manage these data points, these tools, puts it in your perspective and at least in your control to make good decisions around the risk of your business and the productivity within your business. So again, you're concentrating on achieving your goals. We understand that. It is our mission to make sure that you get there. Obviously, with this raised level of awareness and data and reaction, it's very beneficial. I can tell you, as we deploy for our clients who have already moved forward with Security Plus, it's made a huge difference. In fact, we found some vulnerabilities, quite frankly, in existing that we just did not have visibility to. So in terms of next steps, we had made the decision that all new clients get Security Plus as a part of our base package. We've included it as a part of our stack, essentially. And then we've made the decision that all clients who are renewing are going to have the Security Plus as a part of the renewal. We think it's important as a baseline to be able to manage your business in the levels that you expect relative to the threat landscape, as Adam had mentioned. So very important. But now we know we really want to extend it across our client base, where it's an opt-in situation where if you want it now, we encourage you to move forward with it. In fact, we're being very aggressive in terms of the pricing. In many cases, for those of you who have phishing testing, it's actually less expensive. We are intentionally being aggressive with the pricing because we want to encourage you to move forward. In some cases, it is actually a loss leader, but we know there's a cost benefit for being able to pick off some issues or potential breaches before they become a problem. So being a partner with you, we want you to get the benefit of that as well. So having all these tools in place, having the discipline of phishing testing and MDR makes us much more effective for you. It makes you better as a business because you have the information that we're going to share with you in hand. So I encourage you to talk to your client strategies advisors, to sign up. We can get you done relatively quickly. Obviously, there's some lead time in order to be able to deploy it, but the deployments have been going very well, very smooth and seamless, and we see it right from the very beginning. So very much encourage you to move forward as soon as possible, quite frankly. It's that important. Now we'll get into the question and answers. I'll let Jill and Megan kind of manage those questions, and guys, feel free to answer if it's right up your alley.
And I think, Ron, did you want to give the little case study first?
Yeah, just a real quick one to kind of put some weight behind the reasoning why we are making this more of a mandate going forward is that as a managed service provider, we are notorious targets because if the bad guys get into our systems, they can potentially get into hundreds of others. So we are very, very, very tight on our security internally and who has access and permissions, things like that. I mentioned earlier, we're working on our CMMC level 2, which we're almost done with. So our security internally is really tight. We pass that on to clients as well. So just two quick case studies, and this actually goes more to the support of why we have partnered with Blackpoint and why we have seen the positive side of this already. So we have two clients. Both of them have had compromises in recent months. One was not on Blackpoint or any other MDR solution, and they did not want to have MFA enabled on an administrator account. They were compromised. Bad guys held their stuff ransom. They had ransomware. It took them down for a better part of a week. They had no servers, no nothing for a better part of a week, lost thousands upon thousands of dollars. It took us a long time to get them up and running, and now they're back up and running. Over the second example is over to Christmas break this past year is Christmas Eve. User clicked on something and immediately said, hey, I have something on my computer. And before we even answered the phone, we got an alert from Blackpoint and the issue was already resolved on their end. And they were down for, I kid you not, no more than 20 minutes. They lost it was the exact same ransomware code that was used on both clients. So that was the benefit that we use so far, and it is game changer for how we provide support. So just wanted to throw those two things out there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, well, we did get a few questions in the chat. I'm just going to start with the order that they came in. So Laura was asking, is this new technology that we must have, or is it suggested technology? Ken or Ron, you want to?
I mean, I'll take it from a high level. We have decided to put Security Plus in our base package, and I hate saying you have to do it. I said part of it is as an advisor and consultant and a partner of yours, we highly suggest it, and we're directing it. But again, we're sensitive to costs of deploying it. So we want to be a good partner and make it as cost effective as possible. But we feel it's in your best interest to do it.
Right, and adding on to that, and Ken and his team can always work through costs with you, that aspect of it. But from a tech, putting my security hat on, this is absolutely a must-have. Basically, with the two examples I just gave, these are all just baseline tools that will get you to a compliant level, not high-level compliance, but it checks all the boxes off for all the primary cyber forms, all the basic forms for if you are breached, if anything happens, the first thing that insurance company is going to ask, did you have MFA on all accounts? If you say no, the chances of getting a full payout is going to be slim. If you have all things in place, which is what what Security Plus does, then the chances of getting coverage is everything and payout for that incident are going to be a lot greater for you.
I'm going to just skip to the cost question because we keep bringing that up and costing. So how is the cost structured for this? And I know it's on everyone's mind.
Yeah, so it's based on users' devices and Office 365 accounts themselves. We base it, it's $25 per. but we want to incentivize everyone to do it. So we would do it at a reduced cost from there if you're willing to move forward in the near future.
Is MDM going to be put on all the BYOD or bring your own devices?
Ron, you want to take that?
Mobile device management.
Yeah, MDM is not included in this, but we can implement some of the policies. So if you have MDM already in place, or if Ken's team gets MDM implemented, then any policies that may come of that, we will automatically implement them as part of Security Plus.
Yeah, and to answer Reed's question, I saw that pop up. It's $25 per month. And if you do, and just to clarify, some clients just have email-only users as well. So we do that at a reduced rate of, I believe, $5 per email per month.
Okay. Are there different levels of Security Plus in case its features would overlap with the elements that are already in place?
Nothing that we found overlaps, with the exception of Jennifer, your question there with Arctic Wolf. Blackpoint and Arctic Wolf do overlap to a point, but they both have their pros and cons and their strengths and weaknesses, I should say. We're still partners with Arctic Wolf. We are just new partners with Blackpoint. When it comes to this package and this solution, we put our weight behind the Blackpoint side. Arctic Wolf's still in place. It still does its thing. However, there's certain areas where they don't overlap, and those are the areas that would Blackpoint is picking up the slack on that. So as far as there's also a question I believe Lenny asked about SentinelOne and the EDR. SentinelOne is integrated into Blackpoint. So there's an integration tool in there. So it picks up all the alerts as well. On top of that, with SentinelOne, it also syncs over to our RMM solution. So we actually have a third set of eyes on that. So not only does our folks see it, the SOC will see it through Blackpoint, but our NOC, through our ConnectWise NOC, will actually see that as well. And we only say SentinelOne. Defender is also included in there. It does integrate. It's not included. It integrates with the Blackpoint. So if we have any clients that are going to Blackpoint, or I'm sorry, going to Defender, we can use that as well.
Okay, great. And Ron or Blackpoint, do you guys want to address how, like, some of our clients do have Arctic Wolf? So how does it overlap with, how do you guys overlap with Arctic Wolf?
Yeah, I spoke part of it, but I'll let folks hear from outside. Adam or Tanner, if you want to see kind of the overlap there in which you guys can provide an aspect, that aspect.
Yeah, I can take that. So, Arctic Wolf is another MDR service. The main differentiator in how we do things is that we use an endpoint agent and our cloud connectivity backed by the SOC as a service. So we're a SOC as a service at the core. Something like Arctic Wolf, they use a SIM, so a security information and events management tool that is a log aggregation tool. So their main data source are logs, and so the main kind of a limitation there is our service is real time. So we are generating data, dispositioning it, and then indexing and retaining it. With a SIM, it takes a little bit of time to generate the data, get it ingested, parsed, get it searchable, and then some of these queries they're multi-data source, and so they run in batches. So a query might take 5 minutes. After that, all that data is there, it might take an hour. So really the real-time nature of the service, and then just the ability to get the in-depth endpoint data that we get is one of the main differentiators.
Okay. Jessica asks, is it possible to implement access control measures that prevent personal email accounts like a personal Gmail from syncing with internet browsers on company devices, and only allow company email accounts to sync with browsers like Chrome?
Yes, that's part of the conditional access policy that we do. So part of the implementation, that's where we actually have a project manager will sit with you along with the CSA, and they'll go through what CA policies mean, what do they do, and which ones that we recommend as a baseline. And if there's any extras that you want to add on to, like you just mentioned about Chrome and your personal emails, we can implement those as well. By default, we do not block them, but we do ask the question, is there anything you want to block? Do you want to allow your folks to go to social media, things like that? So when we do the onboarding of that, we have a checklist of questions we'll ask you.
Okay, and Reed's asking if we can drop the Arctic Wolf cost. Can you explain again the relatedness of Sentinel-1 and Black?
Yeah.
Tanner, go
I can
ahead.
quickly jump in. So yeah, with if you have Sentinel-1, then we integrate well with it. Our agent plays well. It's lightweight. It's meant to run alongside EDRs like Sentinel-1. So what we would do is we would configure an API integration that's just basically create an API key, put it into the Blackpoint portal, and then from that point, we'll pull all the Arctic Wolf alerts into our system, and our SOC will analyze, investigate, and take action on those, just like we do our own alerts. So you're essentially getting managed EDR as well as our full MDR service.
Okay, and then we did have another, oh, sorry.
Well, we need to address the Arctic Wolf question. I would suggest have a conversation with your client strategy advisor and Ron to determine if there's any sort of compliance requirements around logging and Arctic Wolf relative to Blackpoint.
Okay, great. There was one more clarifying question on the cost. Is it $25 a month per client or per employee within the client?
So it would be based on mailboxes and devices themselves, because that's where the agents are deployed, and that's how we count them. So it's very important that we're reconciling with each client to make sure what is active and what should not be active. So we're working very hard to make sure that that reconciliation is going on. Also, there's considerations around shared mailboxes and resource mailboxes, which we'll take in consideration as well. Typically, those don't have any cost associated with them. And then overall, if there's email-only users, we take that in consideration as well. So again, let's speak with the client strategy advisors who will do it as economically as possible. And again, many of these features in total cost to what we would do if it was individual are much lower going with the package, and that's intentional.
Okay, yeah, it looks like there's a couple cost questions coming in. So do you recommend they talk to their client strategy advisor for their specific situation?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, yep, understand. Okay, great. Any final questions? Because we do have about 2 minutes left, so I'm going to wrap up if not. Yeah. All right, yeah, your CSA are on this call, so they definitely hear your concerns, hear your questions, and we'll definitely reach out to you guys.
Yeah, definitely. And there were some conversation around licensing, particularly within Microsoft 365, in terms of what we can cover with the licensing that you have. Ron did mention that there may be additional licenses needed, like Entra ID, P1. Again, it's not necessarily a requirement per se. It's something that could potentially be roadmapped. So again, talk with your CSA who has all the information, and Ron and I are happy to jump on the call as well if you want a little bit more additional information.
Yep. And that wraps up this webinar. But again, the conversation is open. We will be here to answer all your questions as we do the Security Plus implementations. So thank you so much. Again, the recording will be landing in your inbox later today, as well as the flyer that did not go through correctly. But if you have any further questions, please reach out to your CSA. And again, thank you guys for joining us. We appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank y'all.
Bye-bye.